award-winning Tennessee Wildcast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Wildcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, for listening. We got a great show lined up for you today. It's all about the Tennessee Cave Salamander, Don.
Yes. Looking forward to this.
I'm excited to learn about this creature and that many people don't see.
I know,
so, don't know if I'll ever see one, except in a photo or some videos. Just recently, Barry Krause went out with Dustin and got some footage and put together a little video. And they didn't see one that day. They saw one, couldn't get it on camera. But,
okay.
But it's neat to be able to watch these guys work, and we're going to talk about it today.
I know it. Yeah, behind the scenes, well, under the scenes sometimes, you know.
There you go.
So welcome, Dustin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dustin Thames, he's a Biodiversity Coordinator for Region 2, and we're going to dive into this today. But first, Don, you wanted to highlight our radio station. Yeah,
kind of circling back to our flagship, WJJM, right there in Lewisburg, Tennessee. And Jeff and Missy Hayslip holding the fort down there and doing a great job serving the community. They do a great job with that radio station, local sports and all that sort of thing, and they carry Wildcast Extra and the full show, and we appreciate that very much. They also every year do a huge promotion for Hunters for the Hungry, raise a lot of money there with a local wildlife officer. And all that money goes to help feed hungry folks in the fall, and help hunters be able to donate their deer, and pays for the processing basically for that. So hunters can donate, feel good about it, and people get fed. Hey, it's a win-win deal.
Yeah, it's big for that community. I think a lot of the folks that
everybody comes out.
Everybody comes out, and everybody. A lot of people benefit from that in that community, so it's good.
Yeah,
good fundraising, good efforts there. Another thing I wanted to highlight before we get too far into the show, if you're watching, tune in now because we have some new hats, Don.
I love these hats.
The Wildcast hats are in. This is our second edition, but our first edition in the e-store. So shop.gooutdoorstennessee.com. Sign in there. You can purchase one of these hats if you're a Tennessee Wildcast listener, watcher. If you enjoy the show, want to support us, right there is your hat. And Dustin has one. He's going to wear it proudly and share, show folks wherever he goes that you should tune into this show and need to buy a hat while you're at it.
If you're just listening on the radio, it's a dark gray, very attractive dark gray, and it's got the Wildcast logo on it, embossed and huge stitching, and it just pops.
Yeah. I think it's an awesome looking hat. It's got the logo on the front there and a kind of a patch thing, so it's cool.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, it's great to have those. Also, it is deer season. Just want to remind folks, if you're out there or want to get outside this fall, deer season is the archery season is open. It runs through October 28th and then takes a break for the youth season.
Right.
October 29th through the 30th, and then opens back up for archery October 31st through November 4th. And during this time, you can chase turkeys with archery equipment, but you can also chase them with a shotgun October 15th through the 28th. So a limited shotgun season during the fall.
And if you've never fall turkey hunted, we've got some tips and tricks from Matt Dale. Remember from a previous Wildcast. He had some really good information on there. So even if you're not going to, he's an entertaining guy. Go back and listen to that one. He's a lot of fun.
Got a lot of good feedback from those shows. A couple of shows we did with him on how to call the most deadliest call in the fall, and that's how to call in those gobblers in the fall. And then the other one was just more tips on fall turkey hunting. So it's good stuff. Go check out those shows if you missed them. All right, I think that covers the seasons. Remember tnwildlife.org. The button there on the homepage for the hunting guide is there. Check the hunting guide. Know your rules, regs, which licenses you need. Check those dates. All that information's on our website.
Yep.
All right, Dustin. All the public service announcements are over.
Down to business.
We're excited to have you here. Introduce yourself to folks. Let them know who you are and what you do for the agency and kind of how you got here.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me out today.
You bet.
Started with the agency back in 2007. Started it down at Normandy Fish Hatchery, working with Nathan Singer, Todd St. John, all those great folks down there. I worked there for about 5 years, and then I moved over to the Biodiversity Department, and I've been here ever since.
All right.
So where did you study?
I'm Golden Eagle.
Golden
I
Eagle.
got my bachelor's degree at Tennessee Tech,
All right.
but I'm also a UT volunteer. Back in 2020, while working full time, I earned a master's degree.
Awesome.
So pretty proud of that and glad to be a volunteer.
How
too.
about them volunteers right now? They're doing well.
Man, they're doing great. Loving it.
That's pretty exciting right now for Tennessee fans, but we won't linger on that one too long. So that's pretty cool. Were you originally wanting to be a fisheries biologist and then kind of ventured back into biodiversity, or how'd that work out?
Oh, man. I just love wildlife. I love fisheries, grew up fishing, love fishing. A job became available. I said, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
But, I think I've always had an interest in the critters that you don't see very much that a lot of people don't think about, salamanders, bats, things like that. And so when the job opened up in biodiversity, I thought it was a cool opportunity to learn more about these animals and sort of follow that side of my passion as well.
Cool.
So what about your degree, your master's degree? What's that in?
It's in wildlife and fisheries science.
Okay.
But my thesis research was on tricolored bats.
Okay.
And, looked at the foraging range of tricolored bats down at Bear Hollow Mountain Wildlife Management.
Okay, yeah.
Well, since you mentioned that was kind of on our list of things to hit on if we had enough time, but let's go ahead and hit it. The tricolored bat you were mentioning is possibly could go to the endangered list. Explain what's going on there with that
That's
bat.
right. Yeah, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they proposed to list the tricolored bat as federally endangered. That's protected under the Endangered Species Act. And back before white nose syndrome was introduced into Tennessee, it was really a common bat. We would see it in the summer quite a bit. And it's kind of like the white-tailed deer of caves. It's a generalist. It likes cold caves. It likes warm caves. And if you go into a cave and see a bat, chances are it's a tricolored bat, even today. But when white nose syndrome was introduced, we've lost about 90% of the tricolored bats in Tennessee to this disease.
Huh.
Wow.
Huge impact. And so this listing, it's a bad thing that we've lost so many bats, but if it does get listed, this will provide federal money for us to protect caves and do a lot more monitoring to make sure that their populations aren't totally crashing.
Wow. Well, that's good. That's good that there's money available and resources there to help protect them and put some efforts toward them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, let's get into the Tennessee Cave Salamander, which I thought was pretty cool, that Tennessee has its own cave salamander. It's not just the cave salamander, it's Tennessee's cave salamander. And it's seen in a certain region of Tennessee and some in North Alabama. But let's just jump in, tell folks what they are and a little bit about them, and then we'll dive into some more questions I've got.
All right, well, first off, we do have a cave salamander, just the cave salamander, and it's a different genus than the Tennessee cave salamander. So the Tennessee cave salamander, it's a troglobite. Lives its entire life underground in caves, never sees the light of day. It occurs in about 91 sites in Tennessee, Alabama, and northwest Georgia.
Okay.
So a really restricted range and only known from a few caves.
Wow. And what I think is cool that I learned recently is that they never adapt into the full salamander. It's kind of in a middle stage. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you think of the etymology of the word amphibian, that means two lives, right? So think about frogs. They come from eggs, and then they live in a larval stage, the tadpole, and then they grow legs and become adults. Well, most salamanders are the same way, but some salamanders are neotenic, and that means that they become reproductive in the larval stage. And so these Tennessee cave salamanders, they'll have external gills on the side of their head, just bright, fleshy appendages, and that's how they breathe. And they keep that into adulthood, even when they're reproductive. So it's pretty unusual for salamanders.
What about vision? Do they have need for vision?
They don't have much of a need for it, but they do have eyes, and some laboratory experiments have found that they do respond to light. So their eyes, they can still see to some degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the state amphibian, right?
That's right. It was designated the state amphibian back in 95.
95. And there's been some recent I say recent, in the last, 2005 is not that really recent anymore. But there was a professor who did some work and started studying these sites and found new sites. And tell us a little bit about his work. And that's who y'all went out with just recently in Murray County, right?
Yeah, Dr. Matt Niemiller. He's currently a professor at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, but he got his master's degree at MTSU and went on to get his doctorate at UT. But at MTSU, he studied Tennessee cave salamanders, and he basically went out doing surveys in a lot of caves in Tennessee and found a lot of new sites for Tennessee cave salamanders. And he also did a lot of genetic work on them, sort of looking at their relationship with other salamanders in the state. So a lot of interesting work, and it's always fun to get out with him, like at Yanali. He's, really the world's expert on Tennessee cave salamanders and one of the leading experts on cave life in general.
Yeah.
And he's such a nice guy, fun to be around, so always enjoy being out with Dr. Niemiller.
That's got to be like Christmas Day when you guys enter a cave and you find the Tennessee cave salamander, or another species that you weren't expecting to find there that you hadn't seen in a while. That's just got to be so exciting.
It is, and Dr. Niemiller is really passionate and sort of share that passion. So when you find one, you're like, oh, how much does it weigh? Is it a male? Is it a female?
Yeah.
And it's cool to see. And these species, that we're searching for, they're so cryptic. They may occur in a site, but are you able to find it? You never know. So it's kind of like a needle in a haystack, and it is always exciting.
Probably a lot of luck involved, I guess, besides knowing where the habitat is that you're looking for these things too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Luck's involved. Are you going to flip the right rock?
Yeah, right.
You never know.
Yeah. So you say flipping a rock. Are they in water most of the time? Are they out of water? What's their environment look like inside this cave?
Yeah, they live in underground streams.
Okay.
And typically clear, well-oxygenated streams underground. And they can come out of the water for a short time, but they can't live outside of the water. So they're dependent on that underground stream for their entire life.
Okay.
And what kind of stuff are you looking for when you find them? Are you photographs maybe? The health. Or what are you studying about that animal, about that Tennessee cave salamander?
Well, we'll get the normal stuff. We'll weigh it and get a length. And Dr. Matt Niemiller, he's taken a small tip of the tail.
Okay.
We'll take a tissue sample, and he's doing a lot of genetic work on them just to see if there's any inbreeding, things like that, and to look at its relationship with other similar species.
Okay. Do some of those tests show the health of the cave, or to kind of help determine if the cave is healthy?
Well, all the streams that flow underground, all that water originates above ground.
Okay.
Right? And it goes into sinkholes. Mm-hmm. And so if there's anything on the surface that may, impact the water quality, that's going to impact the health of the salamander.
Right.
So, it's all dependent on the landscape around the sinkhole. So, if there aren't very many Tennessee cave salamanders, that may be, a threat that we look at. What's happening on the surface that could be impacting the water quality.
That's like keep Tennessee beautiful. I've always liked that phrase. If we keep our waters and our lands healthy up here, it'll be healthy for the salamander, sounds like.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So out of 90 sites, or 91, I think you mentioned that they found these salamanders. Do they move? Do they move from cave to cave? Are these caves connected, sites connected, or are they isolated in these areas?
We don't really know. It's probably some are connected and some aren't. We can only go in one cave and be able to stay in that one cave, but then water's flowing probably from cave to cave and also, deep underground in aquifers. But it's really unknown if the Tennessee cave salamander can move from one cave to an aquifer and then get into another cave. We don't know how mobile they are. Most salamanders really don't move a whole lot, maybe a couple hundred meters their entire life. But you never know. They may, the flow of the water may wash them from one cave to another. We really don't know. But that's one of the things that we can look at in the tissue samples is there gene flow between populations. So
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And good gene flow is good. Good genetic diversity. That if there's some catastrophic event, they can adapt to it.
So while in this cave, the recent dive y'all did, I guess, can you call it a dive into these caves, or
It was a wade.
a wade into the cave?
I'm terrified of cave diving, so
What is it, splunking or whatever it's called?
Splunking.
It was in Murray County. Did you find anything else? Did you find anything else cool in there, or evidence of other animals and things that I guess probably some that you're familiar with? But what all did you find while you were diving in this one?
Yeah, it's really neat, the cave ecosystem. So for the most part, if there's no water flowing through a cave, there's not a lot of nutrients there. Not a lot of nutrients, not a lot of life. But some caves, we talked about water flowing from the surface. When that water flows into the cave, it'll bring plant matter and other organic material. And that's sort of the base of the food chain in the cave. So you get that detritus in there, and then you start getting invertebrates. And caves are kind of like little ecological islands. The animals that live inside a cave, they can't really go out above ground and go to another cave.
Right.
So they kind of adapt to that cave environment
It's like
where
their
they
little
are.
city.
Yeah, and so there will be these invertebrates that occur in just one or two caves in Tennessee and nowhere else in the world. But once you start getting those invertebrates, you can start getting the top predators like Tennessee Cave Salamanders. So yeah, in the cave on Yanali, we found several cave beetles, isopods, amphipods, lots of these small invertebrates that, they're tiny. You have to get your head about a foot from the ground and really focus your eyes to find them, or you would have no idea they're there.
And you said you're pretty tight to the ground in this cave. You said you were wading through it or crawling through this area. When people think of caves, they think of huge openings or large just openings inside inside of a rock wall or something.
Yeah.
But you're on your hands and knees in a lot of places, sliding through rocks. Talk about some of these areas y'all dive into or crawl through.
Yeah, the caves, all caves are different. Some are big boreholes that you can walk in, and those are pretty easy. You like those. But then some, you're on your knees crawling for 100 feet, sometimes crawling through water, and then it opens up to a big borehole. And, of course, other caves you're using ropes to rappel into. But there's one cave on Bridgestone Firestone that I recall. You get there, and the hole is maybe a foot by a foot, maybe a foot by 2 foot, and you really have to squeeze into it. And the first time I went in it, I thought, oh, man, am I going to make it? I really don't know. But then once you get in there, you crawl a little ways, and it opens up to a big borehole, so it's a sigh of relief. Oh, yeah, this will be easy. But then you got to get back out. But
that would be my worry. As I'm on my way in, I'd be thinking, am I going to be able to get out of here?
What you always go head first and leave somebody behind you so they can grab your feet and pull you if you can't make it. That's the important thing.
Wow. Yeah. It's if it's going down, let's go. This will be easy. I can go down, but to get back up sometimes it's a struggle. Wow. So, just so folks know, the caves that TWRA owns or its own TWRA properties, they're closed, right, to normal traffic.
They are. They're closed to visitation, to recreation, and I think our mission with TWRA is to manage and protect the species that live in these areas, and that's our primary focus. Now, state parks, they do have some caves that are open by permit, so you can contact your local park, and get with them and. Take the Boy Scouts, take your friends, admire these beautiful underground places, but know that there's a lot of animals there that need to be protected.
Right.
And I think one of the big reasons some of these are closed and off limits is because you all take certain precautions when you go in and out of these caves not to disturb certain things or go in at the wrong times or
contaminate.
Right,
cross-contaminate, cave to cave, that kind of thing.
Yeah, talk a little bit about what you do to protect these caves when y'all are going in them. You're going in them for a good reason, but you also take precautions.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's a great point. White nose syndrome, we found out, was native to Europe, and it was actually introduced into North America back in 2006. So it's an introduced fungus that's led to a disease that's killed millions of bats. And, that was a really eye-opening moment for us as biologists studying these fragile ecosystems. It's like, well, number one, we don't want to spread white nose syndrome from cave to cave. Number two, we don't know what else we might potentially carry from cave to cave. So, after every cave, we'll take our clothes, our boots, anything exposed to dirt, and we'll wash it. And we actually end up having to decontaminate that gear. We can boil our clothes. And then wash them, of course, make sure there's no pathogens or, fungus, bacteria, or at least limit what's left over on our clothes. And then our flashlights and all that, we spray with Clorox, make sure it's all decontaminated too.
Wow. Some pretty high-tech gear you probably have to go into some of these and take that to withstand that decontamination process.
Buy good flashlights, aluminum housings, make sure you can spray them down and they'll survive. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, so generally we want people to stay out of caves, to protect and not move disease around and things like that. But they are pretty cool, and there are, like you said, there's options with state parks and some other places that you can get permits to go in there. And we talked about earlier, I think it's fun, like the Lost Sea, they have a cave. There's some that are open that are more like a tourist attraction type thing. You can kind of see a cave and see some of the stuff that's going on, and see some of the wildlife that live in those caves. They're pretty cool. And
there are also caving organizations called grottos, and you can look on Google, find your local grotto, get with them. These are recreational caving experts. They know good recreational caves to go to, and a lot of them are very mindful of spreading disease and potential impacts they can have on the environment. And there's an organization called Southeastern Cave Conservancy. They own a lot of caves, they lease a lot of caves, but you can get a permit through them to visit the caves recreationally. And these are all good options if you want to recreate in caves.
And I'm sure there's a lot of education involved in those kind of organizations too. They're not going to let you just go willy-nilly in without being prepared and knowing what you're doing.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they'll make sure you have all the right gear. And there are, of course, places that in a lot of caves that you don't want to go because of archaeological artifacts and things like that.
Right.
There are a lot of caves with high numbers of bats. Most of these caving organizations will avoid those areas at critical times.
Yeah, and I can imagine with those organizations too, they probably organize groups to go visit caves too, as opposed to just sending you out on your own or you and your buddy.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, there's a social aspect to it. You get to know people.
Right.
Go as a group. Yeah.
So while we're on it, we've touched on bats a little bit. I think we have a little bit of time. Do you want to touch on? We touched on the tricolor, but the northern long-ear. What's going on with it?
Yeah, northern long-eared bat. This is the bat that's declined the most because of white nose syndrome. Back when I started my career in biodiversity in 2012, it was pretty common in forest. We could catch a lot of these northern long-eared bats. But since the introduction of white nose syndrome, they've declined by about 99%. So there's only been a few northern long-eared bats observed in Tennessee in the past 2 years. I think there's been 2. And so the Fish and Wildlife Service, they initially listed them under the Endangered Species Act as threatened back in, I believe it was 2015. But because they've continued to decline, they've elevated the northern long-eared bat to endangered, or they're proposing to elevate it to endangered. We'll know in November their final decision. But, again, that's warranted. These bats their populations may be gone one day. But, like I said earlier, listing these species will provide us with some federal money to do more monitoring. And there are some areas within their range that aren't impacted by white nose syndrome. So the Gulf Coast, or well, not the Gulf Coast, but the Atlantic Coast, coastal plain over in North Carolina, South Carolina, they have some populations of tricolored bats, and they don't have caves, so they don't have white nose syndrome.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully those pockets, even if we do lose all the northern long-eared bats in Tennessee, hopefully they'll hang on over there on the coastal plain.
Yeah. I know recently y'all were doing some tree habitat, or like these poles that look like trees, and having places for them to den or whatever you call it. Is that helping with some of that, or what do those those structures help?
Yeah, our
Which
artificial
species?
trees.
Yeah.
Artificial trees. Those are primarily focused at for maternity colonies for the endangered Indiana bat.
Indiana's okay.
Yep. So we did a migration study several years, started back in 2013, but we tracked some of these female Indiana bats to Wilson County, and they were on private property. So our wheels were turning. What can we do to protect these animals? You know, we hoped they'd go to public land, but they threw us a curveball. But we ended up getting to know these landowners, and they're absolutely great people. We ended up getting a lease agreement so we could go in, get access to their property and
great.
install some of these artificial trees. And I think we installed the first trees back in 2020, and within months, a maternity colony of Indiana bats started to use this tree. And so, you know, there's probably competition for these dead trees with sloughing bark that get a lot of sunlight, that are just good places for these Indiana bats to give birth and to raise their young. And so, you know, this just provides more of that roosting habitat for the species.
Yeah.
And the maternity colony continues to grow. We had a high count of 40 Indiana bats this year. So
On
that's
that property? Yeah.
on that property.
Wow.
So really good project.
So, did you know that many bats were coming to that area or using that area before you had the fake trees up?
We knew that there were a lot, but
yeah.
they move around. So the trees that they use, these dead trees with a lot of sloughing bark, the bark usually only stays on the tree a year. Then the maternity colony moves on to another tree. So they're almost impossible to follow around. But, you know, that's another advantage of having these artificial roost trees that last a long time is we can monitor them over time.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't fluff off like the others, you know, and it makes it easier for them to come back and have a home there.
Yep.
What kind of material emulates the bark on those
It's
trees?
it's almost like a rubber.
Oh, okay. So it lasts.
It lasts a long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
longer than the tree the untreated telephone pole that it's
Okay.
mounted on. For
I
sure.
gotcha.
Yeah, wow.
Very innovative. You guys are innovative, coming up with ways to do stuff that just amazes me all the time.
We've said a lot on this show that we got a lot of smart people in the agency that
man, I know.
jack of all trades. I mean, they can do just about anything. Come up with these habitats, or fix a tractor, or new ways to plant, or new ways to do this or that.
Exactly.
It's amazing. So we got a lot of cool people in the agency. Go ahead.
I learn something new from them every day.
So you're not one of those? No.
I don't think so.
I think you are. Doing some good work, and it's been great to learn about the Tennessee Cave Salamander. And it's the state amphibian, so that's pretty cool too. And so we appreciate people tuning in and listening and learning about some of this stuff on Wildcast, and appreciate you coming on and sharing this information with everybody.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to talk about Tennessee's biodiversity. We live in a special state. It's good to celebrate it.
All right.
Definitely a special state. From east to west, we got it all, so it's pretty cool. Well, this is Tennessee Wildcast. Don, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dustin.
Dustin, thank you again. Keep tuning in. Keep coming back. Visit tnwildlife.org for everything Tennessee wildlife, and get your license, get outside, check out the e-store for the new hat, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do.